Okay, welcome back to my little series, Rooftop Talks. Today I want to talk about the toughest vegan argument, or one of the go-to vegan arguments that I hear people make. And it's a really tough one to deal with if you're a vegan. So this is maybe to help vegans out. You'll have experienced this, probably. The argument is, what about your phone though? What about your phone? What kind of phone do you have? Wasn't that gained through exploitation in some kind of way? What about your shirt? You know, it could be anything. It could be your clothes. What about your shirt? What about your shoes? Weren't they made in a sweatshop? Isn't that exploitative? And then they might go on to say, well, see, I'm not going to take any advice on morality from someone who exploits others in other ways. And in fact, animal exploitation is just one form of exploitation that we all engage in. And then they might even go on to say as well that it's inevitable that we exploit people or that we exploit others. And so what's the point in trying? So let's have a look at that argument, okay? And I'll tell you three major ways that I combat this argument, that I fight this argument. But first of all, we have to understand the argument. So for one thing, it's a tu quoque fallacy. It's a fallacy that accuses you of something. It's also a distraction. It's a diversion tactic, right? So it's saying, let's not look at this wrongdoing that I'm involved in. Let's look over here at human sweatshops and whatever as an attempt to distract away from the topic. It's a very bad faith argument in general. But the real kicker about this is that they may have a small point to what they're saying, like a small kernel of truth to it, right? And so as long as there is a tiny little bit of truth to that, that needs to be addressed. This is why I think some vegans get this wrong, because some vegans will actually try to deny that there is exploitation going on among humans and that it's possible that a product of human exploitation made its way to your wardrobe or to your phone that makes a small piece of your phone. But a typical vegan answer will be to say, I need my clothes to walk out in public, and I need my phone to function in today's society. I mean, if you want a job, you need a phone number. If you want to register a place to live, you need a phone number. If you want to pay your taxes, you need a phone number. Unlike a choice of ingredients. But I think that's the wrong way of going about it, because first of all, it validates their argument, but it's probably going to plant a seed of doubt in their minds, which will be enough for them to disengage from the vegan argument. So this is step one. I would like to first expose to you what it is you're trying to do and understanding how it's not productive to the discourse. But let's say I'm a sadistic motherfucker. Imagine that I am a sadistic motherfucker and I enjoy tripping up old people. Just as they walk past, you know, an old person on crutches hobbles past and I just stick my leg out and I trip them up. And this is something that I do maybe once a week, just every now and then. And I enjoy it. What can I say? I enjoy it, right? I like the thrill of it when people all rush around, they're asking who did this, and I just slip away quietly, and I find it fun. And also I've been doing it for a long time. And well, the old person, they've had a good life, right? They've had a long and good life, so their life is still a net positive, even though I stick my foot out and trip them up. Okay? But then one day you see me do this. You see me stick my leg out and this old person breaks both arms, and you point that out to me and you say, you need to stop. You cannot do this. What you just did is deeply wrong, and that activity that you're involved in needs to be examined. I'm sorry, I know you've been doing it for a long time, but you have to think about the victim here. And sooner or later, this has to end. Please stop. And I turn round to you and I say, what phone do you have? Where do you buy your clothes? Do you have an Android? Do you have an iPhone? LG? What would you say to that? How would you feel about that if I started talking about phones and Foxconn in China? It's clearly a distraction away from the topic at hand. And also, multiple things can be bad at the same time. Multiple things are bad at the same time. And sometimes, for us to make progress as a society, we have to just pick one, you know? And maybe we should pick one of society's problems in order of severity. And which is more? I'm sorry, but by the numbers, it is animal exploitation. It is a moral blind spot, unlike slave labor, which has already caused a moral panic in the 2010s and the 2000s. This is the issue that takes precedent. But even if it didn't, it would not take anything away from the issue. But now that I've shown why it is a bad faith argument, now I want to engage in it. I will actually do you the courtesy of engaging in this argument. This is the most important part, and this works really well in conversation. Let's start again. You've told me that maybe my phone was derived from slave labor. My phone is in my pocket, you haven't seen it yet, you're looking me up and down for a logo, you've seen the word Huel, and you have no idea what Huel is. You were hoping it would be Nike or something, an easy target for that. But you're asserting somehow that I am involved in some way in some kind of exploitation, maybe some kind of child slave labor, maybe some kind of dodgy contract written up in China with workers who don't really have as many rights as in the West. Okay, valid concern you have there, even though it's completely off topic. Now, let's go a little deeper. Why would that be bad? Why would that be bad? Why would it be bad that I sourced something from slave labor, from exploitation of workers? And then you could say something like, because maybe they didn't consent to it. Maybe they were tricked into working in those conditions and they didn't know what they were getting into. Okay. A bit like animals, right? Maybe it's bad because those people deserve consideration, like animals. Maybe it's because those people have subjective experiences. That ability to experience the world means that they have inherent rights as individuals. Based on their ability to experience the world, they have inherent rights. And a right is a boundary which you should not cross and you should not pay someone else to cross. A boundary which says, this is where your freedom ends and my sovereignty begins. Now, everything I've just said there applies to animals, and there is no difference between humans and animals that would allow you to cross an animal's inherent rights, just in the same way that you have no right to infringe on a human's rights. Okay? So in fact, what you're saying is a valid concern, and that valid concern is simply one that I apply to animals and humans. So I think that works quite well because they realize that they're actually arguing in favor of respecting others' rights by using that. In that way, I care more about rights than whoever is actually making that accusation of me. I'm not using that as simply a tactic to deflect blame or to get someone off of my back. I have a genuine, proactive concern for the rights of others, and I am advocating for others to respect those rights. So, for all the reasons why we should not enslave humans and coerce humans into performing labor, they are the same reasons that we should also not coerce and force and enslave animals to perform labor, and that labor can be in many different forms. Sometimes that labor is just sticking them in a cage and force feeding them and forcing them to have babies and impregnating them. That is labor. You are forcing them to do something they do not want to do, that they did not give consent to do. That is slavery. And now, as a last finale, I want to defend myself from the ad hominem attack directly, because I think you can potentially take the wind out of someone's sails by just showing that their assumption about you is incorrect. So if someone says, do you have the new iPhone? You can just say, no, I don't have the new iPhone. If someone asks you, do you eat avocados? Because blah, 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 the bees in California, you can just say, no, I don't eat avocados. I don't like them. Which is usually my response, because I don't actually like avocados. I don't eat avocados. So here's my phone. This is a OnePlus. You can see it's cracked on the back of the screen. I don't know if you can see that. The screen is really cracked. It's awful. Like, the surface of it is really bad. I just keep on reviving it, replacing the battery every now and then. And yeah, so this phone has been with me for longer than I've been vegan. It turns out this phone is pretty responsibly sourced. It's an Android phone. It's not the new iPhone. But when I bought this phone back then, I wasn't really thinking about how my purchasing choices affect others in the world. But now I do. So I haven't bought a new phone in a long time. I'm going to ride this one out until it completely dies one day, and then I'll buy another phone, reluctantly. But when I do buy another phone, you'll be sure that because I'm a vegan and I take that seriously, my impact on the world, you can bet that I will be researching which phone to buy based on whether there is exploitation going on where it's sourced. Yeah, so anyway, those are my 3 major responses to this very difficult thing to be attacked with, which vegans often are attacked with, unfortunately. Yeah, it's a massive distraction. If you can get away from it quickly, then do that. But yeah, I just wanted to tell you what my response would be when someone tells you that, or when someone asks you that. Okay, I'll see you in the next one.
I was quicker than he was. I tossed his rifle away, and I ran my bayonet through his chest. He fell, put his hand on the place where I had hit him, and then I thrust again. Blood came out of his mouth, and he died. I felt physically ill. I nearly vomited. My knees were shaking, and I was, quite frankly, ashamed of myself. I woke up at night sometimes drenched in sweat because I saw the eyes of my fallen adversary, of the enemy, and I tried to convince myself what would have happened to me if I wouldn't have been quicker than he, what would have happened to me if I wouldn't have thrust my bayonet first into his belly. What was it that we, who had nothing against them personally, fought with them to the very end in death?